Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is the latest episode of Don't At Me with Alex and Michael. What's up, Michael?
Bang, bang.
Bang, bang, baby.
What's up, brother? How you doing?
We're live in studio today, joined by Lakers Nation very own show host and writer, Trevor Lane. Thank you for joining the program, Trevor.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Hey, man. Trevor, I just want you to know that you love the greatest team that God has ever created in the history of this world and any other world there
Ducks?
are. No, the Los Angeles Lakers.
Oh, man. I thought you were going to say Clippers, but, you know.
Get out of here.
The background was a dead giveaway, huh?
Yeah, great background. How many teams? The Clippers they don't even know what that trophy feels like, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, they have their Play-Doh ones. I'm sure they have all the Lego versions.
I guess on 2K they can win championships.
All right, so Trevor, let's just jump right into it right now. We're going to talk about right now specifically early thoughts on the Lakers season, what you're seeing, what you're not liking, and any other thoughts you might have.
How long do we have? Because it has not been pretty early. And this is obviously coming off of the loss to the Oklahoma City Thunder in a game that they had no business losing, but they clutch defeat from the jaws of victory. So far, what we've seen from the Lakers this season is a lot of up and down play, which maybe should be expected to some degree just because there's so many new faces. And then you've got the problem with all the injuries. In the last couple of games, they've had 5 rotation players that have been sidelined already. And as crazy as it sounds, it's been some young players and not just the veteran guys. But in any event, the Lakers are in a spot right now where they just can't quite seem to figure out what their identity is. Defensively, it's been a little bit of a mess as they're trying to get things going. Certainly not like 2 seasons ago when they had a lot of new faces and they came in and the chemistry was instant and they just hit the ground running and they were a juggernaut right from the get-go. This has been a bit more of a slow build in terms of integrating everybody, getting everybody up to speed with Frank Vogel's system on the defensive end, and then offensively trying to figure out Russell Westbrook's speed versus the speed of the rest of the players, how they want all of that to look. So it's been a mixed bag so far. The Lakers certainly haven't been the dominant team that they were projected to be. But again, it's still very, very early as we're looking around the NBA. You're seeing a lot of bizarre things happening score-wise where if this was in January or February, it would just kind of be written off as just another night. But right now, early on, we tend to overanalyze everything and overreact to every single thing that happens because it's such a small sample that we have to actually analyze. And so there's a little bit of that factor at play here as well with the Lakers and a lot of other teams around the NBA.
Hey, agreed, Trevor. I tell my co-hosts all the times, when it comes to the Lakers, you have to remember, especially with the team, brand new players, there's a word out there that's very important to me. It's RELAX. It's an LAX in the word. Just relax. Like
okay,
it's early. It's early in the season. You have AD who's playing great basketball, 28 and 11, 2 or 3 blocks. Russ is always, if you look at Russ's career, whenever he's with the new team, he's been with a few new teams lately. He always starts off slow. He has to figure his guys out. He has to figure out his team. He's going to figure things out. And then you have LeBron James, who has missed a couple games. So, of course, that's going to hurt. But I think the Lakers are going to be all right. The issue for me, the scare, is the injury bug. But if they're healthy, even looking at these first few games, no team in the West can beat them 4 times if they're healthy because eventually they're going to figure it out. So relax, Laker fans. Relax, Alex Himes.
All right, fine. I'll tell it like it is. This was expected. I've already come out and said before the season that the Lakers were going to be a second-round exit team. I said that the old age was going to catch up to them, and I also outright said that Russell Westbrook wasn't the right fit for this team. Granted, he would get you a triple-double, but you'd lose by 10. And last night, he got you guys a quadruple-double with 10 turnovers. And what's going on? Exactly as we expected. The injury bug is hitting the Lakers already, which is already hampering the ability to find that defensive cohesion that they very much need. It's also hampering their ability to actually integrate all the offensive weapons that they had with LeBron James. They brought in Russell Westbrook to extend the longevity of LeBron's career, similar to what Dwayne Wade was able to do with LeBron in Miami. Dwayne Wade's career got extended because of LeBron James, arguably. Okay. And they thought that Russell Westbrook was going to do the same thing, but it's not the right fit. And it's only proof in the pudding right now just by seeing all the evidence play out and the way that the Lakers are playing. Sure, we can chalk it up to it's still early. They need to get used to Frank Vogel, who is their head coach, mind you, head coach Frank Vogel's system. But at the end of the day, I don't see this panning out as the way Laker fans thought it would be, as well as the Lakers organization. They tried to buy into.
You're moving way too fast. You're moving way too fast. I just really think, like Trevor said, there's a lot of weird things going on. A lot of teams. You have the Timberwolves, who are 3-1, who will be a top 3 seed. The Wizards are looking really good. You're telling me that those teams are going to – I expect the Celtics to not be great.
No, then you got to say the same thing to Celtics fans.
No, yeah.
Relax.
Yeah, but they don't have LeBron, AD, Russell Westbrook, Carmelo Anthony, all these guys. The Lakers are going to be fine. They're going to find a way to make it happen.
Oh, my gosh. The collective age of 152. So if we're going to ask you one specific thing that you think is a challenge for this Lakers team outside of the injury bug, what do you think it is?
I mean, a challenge is, again, overreacting to any single thing that you're seeing right now. So if you're taking a 5-game sample size and saying this is, whether you're talking about the Lakers, the Celtics, or whoever, if you're taking a 5-game sample size and saying this is going to be the entire season, I think that's a mistake. That's an error. But if we're looking at the Lakers in terms of what we're seeing right now, it's a matter of getting minutes out there on the floor. They've got to be able to get together and figure out a way to find some of that chemistry. That's going to be the most important thing. And that is a challenge when you're dealing with a lot of players shuffling in and out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I agree with Trevor. I think that chemistry is going to be a big part of the season going forward. They need to play together to figure things out. If you look back at the Laker team in 2004, it kind of was the same situation. They needed the games so that they can play it out. It just sucks that Malone went down in the finals and put it into that whole season. But they just need to play together, and you hope that the injuries can kind of fade a little bit. They got so much depth on this team because the hope was that we can rest guys here and there. So hopefully they can play enough, get the rest at the same time, and they're going to be all right, man. I'm not worried about the Lakers.
I'm going to pull a line from one of my favorite movies, and that's Taken, and the line is, good luck. And that being said, we got to jump over to the NBA Top 75. We finally have been given the list that we've all been waiting for, the top 75 players of all time. The NBA has given us an amazing list of players. Mind you, 20 players playing on the Boston Celtics, 18 for the Los Angeles Lakers. If we're being realistic, a couple of names that shouldn't have been listed with those teams. Gary Payton, Karl Malone, to name some. But we got to jump into, what do you think were the biggest snubs, if any, or biggest surprises, if any?
I think there's an argument for Dwight Howard, certainly with the 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, the multi-time All-Star. I think he's one of the big names that was out there that people were surprised. There's a few others, but the debates like these just don't make any sense to me. Like this is the point, right? The whole point of MVP, of top 75, it's just to get people talking. That's why that's why the NBA has no real qualifications for an MVP, because they want people to discuss. If it was the MVP equals the number of points and rebounds and assists and steals and blocks added up, plus your team wins and whoever has the most gets the MVP, then it would be very clear an answer each season, but they wouldn't have this discussion. And the reason why the NBA does stuff like this is, number one, to honor very good players, but number two, top 75 list, it's to create discussion and create controversy and all of that. The reality is there's no way to say, oh, Dwight Howard is deserving. Great. But then who's not deserving? Who are you going to take off of the list? These are all great players. Somebody is going to be spurned no matter what you do. That's just the nature of the beast. And the NBA, they do that in part to create conversations like this. So I'm not going to worry about who's in the top 75, who's not, all of that kind of stuff. These are all great players. Sure, there's some other guys who probably deserve to be on there, but you know what? The NBA's got a ton of phenomenal talent. And I think it's just a great way to honor players at this point and create a little bit of controversy out of nothing.
But see, Trevor, that's where we're different there. We have the Laker love together, but we're different, man. I'm a great debater. Shout out to Denzel Washington. So I like to debate, and I really think that Dwight was snubbed. Like, if you look at a lot of the names on the list, most of those names are champions. Most of them have accolades to go with a championship or two. For that guy not to be on the list, like at one point we were talking about Dwight Howard possibly being the best player in the NBA. It was between about 2008, 2011 range, where it was him, LeBron, Kobe. He made it to the finals with his team. So for him not to be on the list, and I hate to say it because I'm such a big fan of Damian Lillard, Dame just doesn't have the accolades for me. Like, remember, at one point he was arguing and whining, according to my guy Russ, about being an all-star because he wouldn't make it, while this guy Dwight was clearly dominant, defensive player of the year 3 times, like you said, and he made Orlando irrelevant again. And the fact that he couldn't be on this list, I just disagree with that. But you know, it's a great debate. I know Himes has a different feel on it, and it's probably wrong, but I'll listen to him. What do you have for me, Himes?
Look, I happen to agree with Trevor in that the players that were selected were the proper players. You're not going to take out players who made the top 50 list.
Take out Bill Walton.
Look, you made a point to mention Damian Lillard, but the entire argument that you had was almost comically identical to exactly what Kendrick Perkins said on ESPN the other day in regards to Bill Walton. That's actually where my biggest gripe is. Perkins wanted to have Bill Walton taken off the list to make room for Dwight Howard.
Take him off.
Last time I checked, albeit Dwight Howard has had a great career. Bill Walton, though, MVP, finals MVP in the same season, 6th man of the year with arguably a top 3 NBA team all time in the 1986 Boston Celtics. 2-time NCAA champion. This guy was
NBA.
special.
This is NBA.
This was special. Bill Walton was nothing short of an amazing center, was a face of a generation for talent, won the Blazers' only title, then became a 6-man with the Boston Celtics on, again, the 3rd greatest roster of all time, and won another title. Bill Walton deserves to be on that list, and there is zero reason why Kendrick Perkins, an ex-Celtics center who has the knowledge of what a guy like Bill Walton has done over the years, should be trying to take him, 1, out, and then 2, putting a guy in whose accolades are being looked at under a microscope from the current generation. People are not valuing the product that was put on the court by the generations prior. People have issues with guys like Bill Walton, Dave Cowens being on this list. Yeah, look at their numbers, recognize their game, what they did impact-wise in that generation, and stop trying to compare them to the stats that are being put up now.
The honest truth, if it was all based off of picking guys right now, like they kept the top 50 in, I respect that, I understand it. But if you really look at Bill Walton's career, after winning that championship, he had a patch to where he was like because of injuries, he was a mediocre player.
And yet
then it was a resurgence to be a 6-man.
Yes, with the Boston Celtics.
So a 6-man, if Jamal Crawford, is Jamal Crawford going to make top 100?
Did Jamal Crawford win MVP and finals MVP in the same season?
So with the top 75 stuff, you mentioned the situation where you've got people who are discounting what people have done before. And I think that's true. Part of that is you go back and you look at old footage and things like that, and you think, okay, well, this guy clearly athletically isn't on the level of what we're seeing right now, right? But that's each generation, right? And that's across a lot of different sports. So it's hard to compare one generation to the next. I also think that we fall prisoner to the moment where when we're looking at a guy like Dwight Howard, we're looking at it through today's lens. Right now at this moment, Dwight Howard is a role player, whereas 10 years ago, Dwight Howard is a superstar. Now, 10 years from now, what Dwight Howard are we going to remember? We're not going to be talking about role player Dwight Howard because we tend to revert back to the best version of that player. Look, we don't think of Orlando Magic Dominique Wilkins, right? We think of high-flying Atlanta Hawks Dominique Wilkins. That's what we tend to do with great players, and that's what's going to happen where 10 years from now, Dwight Howard might be a little bit higher in standing. But right now, when people think of Dwight Howard, they think Lakers role player first before going back to the superstar days. So that's always a factor and something that you have to consider. The lens that you're looking through in this moment can sometimes change the results of things like this.
Agreed. I agree.
And that's why I said Dwight Howard right now, if we were going to go top 80, if it's a top 80 list, I have no problem having Dwight Howard, Klay Thompson slotted in there too. And we also forget about Gail Goodrich too as well on that list that we could bring up for that. T-Mac has an argument there. That's why top 80 is fine. But if we're talking about just top 75 for the 75 years, they got the list right, and I have no problem with what they have.
Okay.
No argument there? I'm surprised.
I respect it. I just feel that Dwight should be on that list. If you look at accolades and the eye test and what he did for Orlando, first overall pick out of high school, Superman. When Shaq has beef with you, a lot of times it's a reason why, other than JaVale McGee.
Yeah, okay. So if we're going to talk about, now we're going to talk about another person who was left off the list, and rightfully so, and that is the man that is currently not playing for the Brooklyn Nets, and Kyrie Irving.
Kyrie!
So Trevor, we want to discuss what your thoughts on Kyrie are currently, and do you think that he will be making an appearance for the Brooklyn Nets at some point this season?
No, I don't. I just, the Nets have moved on. They've made it clear that they are assuming that he is never going to play at all this season, and that's the way it's going to go. And it makes sense to have that mindset, right? Because then they're not constantly asking the question, when is Kyrie coming back? They're just moving forward as though he's not. And then if he does, they'll be pleasantly surprised. But it sounds like his mind is not going to be changed anytime soon. And then I don't think the mandate is going to be changing anytime soon either.
Agreed.
I guess it's possible maybe towards the end of the season, the rates start to let up and the mandate gets changed or whatever. I know like the mandate's not set to be in place forever, right? I don't think that's going to be a permanent thing, but will it actually change by the end of the season or not? It's really hard to project something like that. So for right now, I think we just have to look at this as though we're not going to see Kyrie Irving at all this season. And I think what that does for the Nets is it lowers their margin of error in terms of what you can sustain in terms of, injuries and things like that and still get by.
No, yeah. And I just think that for the Nets fan, they're like, Kyrie, hurry back. It looks tough right now. Like James doesn't have that first step. Maybe he's still recovering from, the injury. The new rules are affecting him. He's used to getting these fouls.
Yeah, I think it's more the new rules than anything else.
He's at like 17, 5, and 8, something like that, to where that's not the James Harden we expected. Like I thought he was going to come out and look more like the Rockets James Harden, to where it didn't really matter whether they had Kyrie or not, because him and Kevin Durant, like that Rockets James Harden and Kevin Durant, no one's beaten them, even the defending champs. But with this James Harden that we're seeing now, and the rest of the team trying to figure it out, like if they don't have Kyrie, it changes so much. Do I think that eventually he plays? I think so. But, man, it just looks it looks way different compared to what I thought I was going to see with the Nets, the team that I chose to be in the finals to play the Lakers this year.
Look, if Kyrie does come back, on the off chance he does, it won't be for the Brooklyn Nets. I think that at this point, with everything that has occurred, you can hear just by how many times James and Kevin have been asked about whether or not they've talked to Kyrie and how they vehemently say no almost immediately. I think that relationship is fraught. We talk about how Ben Simmons' relationship with the 76ers is damaged beyond repair. But I think at this point, the Brooklyn Nets as an organization want to move on from Kyrie. And if he does end up getting vaccinated, sure, it might be a pleasant surprise that he could come back. But in the same breath, I think that they'd be more willing to just move him at that point and get him off their team. He's more of a head case, and I mean that in the nicest way. I mean that he's more, actually, I should say this. He's more of a distraction to your organization.
Tread lightly.
No, he's more of a distraction to your organization than his worth actually is to the organization itself. I think that if he does end up coming back, getting vaccinated, whatever it may be, he'll be there maybe for a game or two, if any, and then he gets traded because Brooklyn does not want to deal with this. They've made it very clear they are not going to extend him this offseason when he goes into free agency.
I disagree.
There is no chance at this point that Kyrie will be able to fix that relationship with not only his teammates, but the organization as a whole, and he'll end up being somewhere else.
I disagree, because if they wanted to trade him, they can trade him now, and he could be playing for Philly, because
no team is going to trade for him right now.
No, but it's just playing for the Knicks, for the Nets is the reason why he can't play in these games, like these home games. But it's so weird that if he was playing for Philly, he would be allowed to play. But it's just his relationship with Kevin Durant. They're really close friends. And just he's Showtime. Like, he's my favorite player to watch right now when he's on the court, because it's Showtime and it's meant to be played there in the city of New York, Brooklyn to be exact. So Kyrie isn't going anywhere. I think eventually he plays, and the Nets need him ASAP.
I will double down on it. Kyrie will not be a Brooklyn Net if he returns. Hey, don't at me on that one.
Man, don't at me. He's going to be a Net, and they're going to be in the finals.
Oh, God. All right, fine. We got to talk about the last player that also is not currently going to be playing for his team, and that is the drama that continues. Ben Simmons, to be exact. So what are your thoughts on Ben Simmons, Trevor?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting situation. Obviously, Philadelphia fans are extremely angry with Ben Simmons right now. You can't even understate that at this point. They are furious with Ben Simmons, and Ben Simmons is not happy with Philadelphia. I think this is a situation where everybody looks bad, right? Everybody looks bad. Ben Simmons looks bad for sitting out with 4 years on his contract. The Philadelphia looks terrible because they made it pretty clear, hey, we're going to try to trade this guy. And then he went in and requested a trade, and suddenly they're offended. Why are we surprised at that? They pretty much placed all the blame on him for them bowing out of the playoffs. Now, whether or not that's accurate, that's also not what good organizations tend to do, is place all the blame on one player, particularly a player that is potentially a star level player, and you are going to have as your franchise level talent potentially moving forward. Obviously, he's got his flaws, but so it's a messy situation. And then Philadelphia sets the bar super high in terms of what they want in a trade, and that's created some issues around the league. In fact, from what we've heard, the bar has been set so high that it looks like they don't even want to make a trade, right? I mean, it's like they're asking for the moon in exchange for Ben Simmons, to the point where other teams are like, wait, what am I supposed to do with this? I can't even counter this offer because you want whatever, 5 first-round picks and a bunch of pick swaps and all kinds of craziness that you want back right now. So teams aren't in a position where they can actually make this trade. I think it is going to go through December 15th, when a good chunk of the league becomes trade eligible, because all the contracts signed this last offseason aren't trade eligible until then, if not later. So I think that's kind of the big date here to see when and if he eventually gets moved. But right now, nobody looks good in this situation, whether it's the 76ers, whether it's Ben Simmons. I know a lot of people are angry with Clutch Sports and saying this whole thing of the players have too much power and all that kind of stuff. And it's a mess. That's what it is. It's a mess.
It's a mess that can be fixed, though, I feel. I just think that both ways they've done wrong. Like Philly, how they're treating him and making him feel. And then you have Ben Simmons for the kind of diva ways that he's acting. But it's the city of Philly. If he just shows up and perform, the city is going to love him once again. And if Philly knows this, the whole world clearly knows that he just has to be a better scorer. Like, when your stats are still 15, 8, and 8, the same numbers as your rookie year, you're not doing enough to get better. And we always bring up his jump shot. You have to get a jump shot. Lonzo Ball was talked about for the weird-looking shot and how he was missing shots. And now this guy is one of the better shooters. It shows that it's possible if you put in the work. If Ben Simmons puts in the work, a team that I've been on their bandwagon for a while, with Embiid, with Seth Curry, with Tobias, they can easily be a team that's in the conference finals and be a favorite to make it to the finals. So it's on Ben to step his game up, to prove that he is a generational talent. But, hey, what are we going to get from him? We just don't know.
Look, I'm going to make this very short and very sweet. If Markelle Fultz, who had the yips and literally forgot how to shoot a basketball, can come back to the court, shoot again, and average a good amount of points to look like a reclamation project for the Orlando Magic, there is zero excuse for Ben Simmons to not learn actually how to shoot the basketball with beyond 5 feet away from the rim. The last thing I'll also point out is, if I'm going to end up having to deal with Ben Simmons, I'd make a trade and I would send him to the Sacramento Kings to pick up one De'Aaron Fox. Give me someone that's a high up-tempo player, a guy that can shoot, stretch the floor, who's great at passing and knows how to get all the guys the open shots. So my last question to you, Trevor, is what do you think about that deal?
I don't think the Kings are offering De'Aaron Fox right now. I think that's been a big sticking point in their negotiations, is they haven't been willing to put him on the table. And I understand why, because teams don't want to pay top dollar or anything like that. If I'm the Kings, I probably am not making that move because De'Aaron Fox has become such a big part of their organization. They look pretty good in the early going. They've been fairly impressive, but Sacramento is also not a team that's going to get a lot of stars. I think that's ultimately what's going to happen here, is you're going to get a team, whether it's Sacramento, whether it's like the Pacers, another team that's not a free agent destination is going to step up and up their offer. And maybe it is finally putting in De'Aaron Fox. Again, if I'm the Kings, I probably wouldn't do that. I'd probably try to move other pieces, because if I'm taking on Ben Simmons, I think the Ben Simmons at point guard experiment is done. I think that's not a thing anymore. You turn him into a point forward and you run him that way. I don't think he can be a point guard if he can't shoot. He can shoot in pickup games, but he can't shoot in NBA games. So with that being the case, I don't think you can run him as a point guard in today's NBA. And so I'm making sure I've got another point guard on the roster if I'm the Kings or whoever is trading for him.
Hey, if Summer League Ben can make it to the league, he'll be a very special player, man. But hey, Trevor, we thank you so much, man, for joining us here at Don't At Me.
Woo!
I know it's probably your new favorite show, but man, let everybody know where they can find you and find your work, man, with all the great stuff you're doing with Lakers Nation.
Sure. Yeah. You can find most of my work over on the Lakers Nation YouTube channel, where we do Lakers videos there every single day. I also host the NBA Front Office Show with Keith Smith, where we cover the entire NBA, a lot of it from a salary cap perspective. So you can find that on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you do find podcasts. And of course, all of our Lakers podcasts as well, wherever you find podcasts there. And then written work is over at LakersNation.com. We cover everything going on in the world of the Los Angeles Lakers, good and bad, which means there's a lot of reaction to the Oklahoma City Thunder disaster on there right now.
Trevor, we thank you again for tuning in with us and joining and spreading the word about your show, what you're doing right now, as well as talking to us about the NBA Top 75.
Yes.
And we'd love to have you on again next time. And for that, Michael, he is Michael the PG. I am at Himes LA. Don't forget to check us out on YouTube, like, subscribe, follow us everywhere. Find us on all streaming services, people, and we'll catch you next week.
Don't at me, baby.
Woo!